What up? It's your boy, Dick Incredible Man. Yes, I am back at it again, and I just finished 911 Lone Star Season 2, Episode 3. And oh my gosh, man, I love it when a crossover comes together. This episode was absolutely fantastic. And sure, there was some elements in there that, it kind of really played heavily on certain characters. But I just love seeing all of these characters together. And don't get me wrong, Chimney and Bobby couldn't come because they had their own things they were dealing with. So we got Eddie, Buck, and Hen. And it was so nice to see the 118 with the 126. And it was just so good to have that whole clash together. And it brought a smile to my face. Like I said, man, I love it when a crossover comes together. And this came together wonderfully. It wasn't too outlandish or anything. It was strictly a fire had broke out in Texas that, it covered over, how many acres? I can't remember exactly the acreage, but it covered over a lot of acreage in Texas. So they had to call out for Oklahoma and Los Angeles, California and stuff to come help. So they did, and the 118 met the 126, and it was fantastic, man. Everybody just kind of clicked together, and it was cool. But I gotta say, I love the buddy of Marjan and Eddie for one. And I love the buddy of Buck and TK. And it felt so good to have it. And I gotta say, man, it felt so good. Like, the story itself basically was the fire broke out. They needed some extra companies to help fight the fires. They did. And Eddie, being a paramedic in the military, and, a paramedic, but he's basically a firefighter, but a paramedic in the military, he had experience. So they had this one case where they were some kids up there in some at-risk kids doing like a camp or whatever to make them better men or whatever. And they were out there and they got caught. And there was going to be probably some complications. So Eddie went with the rest of 126, which was Paul, Marjan, Judd, and it was Eddie, to go check out these kids and make sure they were fine and all right. And I think it was maybe like one or two more little ATV things, so they can put the kids on there and they can ride out safely. So that took place and they rescued all the kids, and then we see Eddie actually have to cut open the camp counselor because his chest had kind of burned up a little bit. So we got to see Eddie in action. We got to see Eddie connect with Marjan this episode. She found out that he had a kid, and it was so nice, man. And we see Buck staring at Marjan the whole time they make their appearance, and they're talking about the fires and everything. He's like, man, I'm telling you, man, I know her. I just can't remember from where. That he remembers that that's Firefox. That is Firefox. And we all know that Marjan is hot, man. Let's be real. Like, no pun intended, because, they fighting fires, but Marjan is hot. Let's be honest. We all know it. But, so Buck, of course, Buck is going to stare. And let's be real. Eddie was staring for a minute too. Like, he can say that he wasn't, but once he got to know her and talked to her a little bit, Eddie started, okay, I see you, Marjan. I see you. So it was nice to have all of that connectivity and everybody just kind of meshed together, and it was so cool. And then we had to find out that one kid was separated from the group, and he was out there hurt and caught up in a bear trap. And therefore, he decided to give an idea to Captain Owen, which was to go up in a helicopter and with some infrared and see if we can spot this kid. They did that. They found him, but in the process, with Judd and Paul rescuing the kid, in the process, the helicopter went down. Now, this entire episode from the very beginning, we see that Owen is having dreams and hallucinating, and I feel like he's just dealing with ghosts. One ghost in particular, but he's dealing with ghosts nonetheless. We see that Tim's death really affected him. It affected Vega as well, but it really affected Owen, plus piled on with all the loss and of everything of 9/11. Like, Owen has a lot of ghosts that he's dealing with, and he feels responsible, especially for Tim's death, for sure. And it's haunting him. We even see Tim appear all beat up and mangled throughout this entire episode. But Owen gets trapped in the mine shaft with Hen, and both of them kind of bear their souls out. And Hen talks about the girl that she hit with her ambulance, and Owen kind of talks about losing Tim, and they both kind of just bear it all, and makes it easier to get off of their chest because they haven't told anybody any of this stuff. Like, they dealt with it, well, they semi-dealt with it in their respective shows, but it's still affecting them. But in the mine shaft, they were and they was in there on their own, kind of dealing with it, and they kind of shared and bared their soul to each other. And it seems like it helped both of them. But we just had to know that with Hen being trapped in the mine and Owen being trapped in the mine, that the 126 and the 118 was not just going to sit there. And Buck was like, him and TK started to have a moment because, you know, like I said, they got buddy. They started to have a moment. And he was like, well, I did take some keys to a fire truck. He was like, okay, dude, let's go. I mean, we go get your father and we go get Hen, you know, we can rescue him. And he was like, oh, this is the 118. Okay, like they get there, TK was like, okay, man, where are you going? This is the 118 right here. Yeah, I know. But I'm not taking the one. Buck was like, I am not taking the 118. Bobby will kill me, man. There's no way I'm driving the 118. We're going to take y'all fire truck. And we're just going to go on up here this mountain real fast. Like, so it was fun to have the comedy in here as well, because we see the seriousness dealing with Owen and Hen and everything else, and everybody being worried about these two people. But there were still sprinkles of comedy left throughout there, and it was nice to have those moments. We see Judd calling them two dumbass. It was nice, man. It was fun, and everybody's like, "Oh, we're coming with you." So they rescue Hen and Owen with little struggle. It was. I mean, we knew they weren't going to die, so they rescue them with little struggle, and all's well that ends well. And we see Hen and Owen kind of having a moment at the end where they both was like, "Yeah. Well, what stayed in the tunnel, what happened in the tunnel stays in the tunnel." And Hen was kind of telling Owen maybe he can leave some of those ghosts in that tunnel as well and kind of relieve himself of some of the stress that he's been building up upon himself. And at the end, we also see Vega is there to kind of console him a little bit because she was worried about him the way he ended his call. And you could definitely tell something was strange with him talking about Tim to her. He was trying to check out her, but like he was kind of mentioned that he was feeling some type of way as well. But all's well that ends well, and we see that everybody kind of had that get farewell, peace out hug and everything, and we see Marjan and Eddie taking a picture, and Paul goes, "That's all kinds of pretty right there. That's all kinds of pretty." But we get a moment between TK and Buck, and Buck was like, "Well, if you ever find yourself in LA, you know, man, just look me up and we can hang." And TK was like, "Well, I already have a boyfriend." And Buck was looking like. I'm not gay, man. I don't know what you're talking about. It was funny to have that moment, man. It was nice. And I just love these shows so much. And this crossover was fantastic. It was a combination of both shows. It brought the seriousness and the comedy. And what I loved was that, like, it didn't seem like far-fetched or anything. It was anything extra. It was just them fighting a fire and getting to know each other, and it was nice. And I can't wait for another crossover, man. Maybe they could do a crossover on like a huge natural event on its own. That would be nice. This is your boy Nick Incredible, man. I enjoyed this episode so much, but don't forget to smash the like button till you can't smash any more. Comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.